The lights were too bright. Ethan Cross stood at the 50-yard line, helmet tucked under his arm, and felt nothing. Around him, the stadium roared. The scoreboard flashed 28-14. His teammates were chest bumping, screaming into the October sky. Someone dumped a cooler of Gatorade over Coach's head. Victory. The word tasted like ash. Ethan's gaze drifted across the bleachers, past the parents waving foam fingers, past the cheerleaders in their red and gold uniforms, past Sarah, his girlfriend, who was already looking at her phone. And then his eyes stopped. Top row, far corner, away from everyone else. A boy sat alone. Thin shoulders, dark hoodie pulled up despite the stadium lights. Headphones on, a book open in his lap. Adrian Clarke. Ethan knew his name only because they'd been in the same school since kindergarten. But Adrian was the kind of person you could sit next to for 12 years and never really see. A ghost in the hallways. A shadow at the back of every classroom. Adrian turned a page. He hadn't looked up once during the entire game. Something in Ethan's chest tightened. Crossed hallway, Tyler Martinez slammed into him from behind, nearly knocking him over. That throw in the third quarter was insane, man. Ethan forced a smile. His face knew how to do this. Years of practice. Team effort, he said. Tyler laughed. Don't be modest. You're going to USC. Baby NFL's going to be begging for you. The words landed like stones. Heavy, cold. USC, full scholarship. His future already decided. Ethan looked back at the bleachers, but Adrian was gone. Just an empty space where he'd been sitting. The book left behind on the metal bench. You coming to Jake's party? Tyler was still talking. Whole team's gonna be there. Yeah, Ethan said. I'll be there. He wouldn't be. The parking lot was nearly empty by the time Ethan changed and left the locker room. Most of the team had already headed to Jake's house. Sarah had texted him 3 times asking where he was. He'd answered each one with some variation of, be there soon. Another lie. They came so easily now. His truck sat under a flickering streetlight at the far end of the lot. Ethan climbed in and just sat there, engine off, windows down. The night air was cold. It smelled like rain and cut grass. He pulled out his phone, opened the browser, typed in Betelgeuse supernova probability. The same search he'd done 100 times. The same search he'd never tell anyone about, because Ethan Cross didn't care about dying stars. Ethan Cross cared about football, about scholarships, about making his father proud. That's what everyone knew. That's what everyone believed. Ethan closed his eyes, leaned his head back against the seat. He was so tired of being Ethan Cross. A sound made him open his eyes. A bicycle, old and rusted, wobbling through the parking lot. Adrian. He had a backpack slung over both shoulders and a canvas bag hanging from the handlebars. His headphones were still on. He pedaled slowly like he had nowhere to be and all the time in the world to get there. Ethan sat up straighter. Adrian was heading toward the exit, the main road. It was dark, no streetlights for the first mile. Before Ethan could think about it, he turned the key. The engine rumbled to life. He pulled out of his spot, drove slowly toward the exit, just to make sure Adrian got out safely. That's all, just to make sure. The bike wobbled again. Adrian was looking down at something. His phone maybe, or a book, not watching the road. Ethan pressed the horn lightly, a short tap, just to get his attention. Adrian's head jerked up, and the bike swerved. Everything happened too fast. The bike veered right. Adrian overcorrected left. The front wheel hit a pothole, and then he was falling. Ethan slammed on the brakes, too late. The front bumper of his truck caught the rear wheel of the bike. Metal crunched. The bike went sideways. Adrian hit the pavement hard. Shit! Ethan threw the truck into park and jumped out. Adrian was on his hands and knees. Books and papers scattered everywhere. His backpack had split open. Notebooks, pens, a broken thermos leaking coffee across the asphalt. Are you okay? Ethan dropped to his knees beside him. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. Are you hurt? Adrian didn't answer. He was scrambling to gather his things. Frantic, his hands were shaking. Let me help. Don't. Adrian's voice was quiet but sharp. Just don't, yes. But Ethan was already picking up books. A calculus textbook. A worn paperback of The Left Hand of Darkness. A leather journal that had fallen open. Ethan glanced down at the page and froze. Gravity doesn't pull us down. It pulls us towards something we're meant to orbit. Below the words equations, complex, beautiful, orbital mechanics, gravitational constants, calculations for binary star systems. Ethan knew these equations. He'd taught them to himself over years of late-night Wikipedia articles and YouTube videos and textbooks stolen from the library. Give it back. Adrian snatched the journal from his hands. His face was pale, eyes wide, not with pain, with fear. Like Ethan had seen something he wasn't supposed to. They stared at each other. Adrian's eyes were gray, light gray, like clouds before snow. "I'm sorry," Ethan said again. "About the bike, about—" "It's fine." Adrian shoved the journal into his broken backpack. "It's fine." He stood up, winced. His left knee was scraped. Blood soaked through the torn fabric of his jeans. "You're bleeding. Let me drive you home." "No. You can't ride your bike like that." "I said no." Adrian grabbed the mangled bike. The front wheel was bent at an angle, completely unrideable. But Adrian tried anyway. He threw his leg over the seat and pushed off. The bike lurched forward 3 feet, and then the wheel locked up. Adrian stumbled off. He stood there, holding the broken bike, shoulders tight, head down. Ethan's chest ached watching him. "Please," Ethan said quietly. "Let me give you a ride. It's the least I can do." Silence. Then, "I live on Maple Street." "I know." Adrian looked up. "How do you know where I live?" Ethan didn't have an answer, not one that made sense, because he'd noticed Adrian, had noticed him for years. The way he always sat in the back corner. The way he never raised his hand, even though his test scores were always posted on the honors board. The way he ate lunch alone, reading like the cafeteria noise didn't even exist. "Lucky guess," Ethan said. Adrian stared at him for a long moment. Then he leaned the broken bike against a light post and walked toward the truck. The drive was silent. Adrian sat pressed against the passenger door, backpack clutched in his lap. He stared out the window. Ethan kept his eyes on the road. Millbrook at night was all closed storefronts and empty sidewalks. Population 4,000. Everyone knew everyone. Nothing ever changed. Ethan loved it. Ethan hated it. "Turn left here," Adrian said quietly. Ethan turned onto Maple Street. Small houses, older, paint peeling on some of the porches. Very different from Ethan's neighborhood where every lawn was perfect and every house had a 2-car garage. "That one." Adrian pointed to a white house with blue shutters. One of the porch lights was out. Ethan pulled into the driveway. Adrian opened the door immediately. "Thanks." "Wait." Adrian paused. Ethan reached into his wallet, pulled out 2 20s. "For the bike, to get it fixed." "I don't need your money." "It's not about need. It's about I broke it. Let me fix it." Adrian looked at the money, then at Ethan. "Keep it," he said softly. The bike was already broken. He climbed out, shut the door, and then he was gone. Up the porch steps, into the house. The door closed behind him. Ethan sat in the driveway for a full minute, then he backed out and drove home. But his mind stayed on Maple Street, on gray eyes and orbital mechanics, and a question he couldn't stop asking himself. What else is Adrian Clarke hiding? Ethan didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at his ceiling, at the glow-in-the-dark stars he'd stuck up there in 6th grade. His parents had thought it was cute. A phase. It wasn't a phase. He'd spent hours researching which stars to put where, made sure the constellations were accurate. Orion, Ursa Major, Cassiopeia. His phone buzzed. "Sarah, where were you tonight?" "Everyone was asking about you," Ethan typed back. "Sorry, wasn't feeling great, headache." Another lie. Sarah responded immediately. "Feel better. Love you." Ethan stared at those 2 words. He should say them back. He always said them back. His thumbs hovered over the keyboard. "Thanks," he typed instead. He put the phone down, closed his eyes, and all he could see was that journal page. Gravity doesn't pull us down. It pulls us towards something we're meant to orbit. Saturday morning, Ethan woke up to his father pounding on the door. "Up and at 'em, gym time," Ethan groaned, rolled over, looked at his clock, 6 a.m. "Come on, kiddo. Champions don't sleep in." His father's voice. Always loud, always certain. Coach Robert Cross, former NFL wide receiver. 3 seasons with the Seahawks before a torn ACL ended his career at 26. Now he coached high school football and lived vicariously through his son. Ethan dragged himself out of bed. 20 minutes later, they were at the gym, his father's gym. Cross-training, the place he'd opened after the NFL dream died. 3 sets of squats, his father said, loading some plates onto the bar. Then we'll work on your footwork. I noticed you were favoring your right side last night. Ethan got into position under the bar. Good game, though. His father clapped him on the shoulder. Damn good game. USC's gonna love you. The weight pressed down on Ethan's shoulders. Yeah, he managed. You hear back from them yet? About summer training camp? Not yet. They'll call. Don't worry, you're their guy. His father grinned. My son, playing Division I, maybe going pro. The weight got heavier. Ethan lifted. 1 rep, 2, 3. His legs burned, his lungs burned. But not as much as the question burning in his mind. What if I don't want this? He didn't say it out loud. He never said it out loud. That afternoon, Ethan went to the library. He told himself it was to study. Midterms were coming up. He needed to focus. But midterms weren't why he was there. The Millbrook Public Library was small. 2 floors. Old carpet that smelled like dust and paper. Mrs. Chen, the librarian, had worked there for 30 years. She knew every book by heart. Ethan headed straight for the 2nd floor. The quiet section, where nobody went, where Adrian Clarke sat every Saturday afternoon. Ethan knew this because he'd seen him there before. Months ago, back when Ethan had actually come to study, he'd noticed Adrian in the corner by the window. Always alone, always reading. Ethan had wanted to say something then. He didn't know what, just something. But he never did, because what would Ethan Cross, quarterback, have to say to Adrian Clarke, nobody to know? Climbing the stairs, Ethan's heart hammered in his chest. He reached the 2nd floor, and there Adrian was. Same corner, same window, headphones on, bent over a notebook. Ethan hesitated. Then he walked over, picked a table nearby, not too close, not too far, close enough to be noticed, far enough to seem casual. He pulled out his calculus textbook, opened it, stared at the same problem for 15 minutes without reading a single word. Adrian hadn't looked up once. Maybe he didn't even know Ethan was there. Ethan glanced over. Adrian was writing, fast, equations filling the page. His hand moved like he couldn't write fast enough to keep up with his thoughts. Ethan recognized some of the symbols. Derivatives, integrals, but others were beyond him. Advanced, graduate level maybe. Adrian paused, frowned at something, scratched it out, started again, and then without warning he looked up. Their eyes met. Adrian's expression didn't change. He just stared at Ethan, unblinking. Ethan's mouth went dry. Say something, anything. Hey, Ethan said. Adrian pulled off his headphones. Hey. Silence. How's your knee? Ethan asked. Adrian glanced down at his leg. The bandage was visible through his ripped jeans. Fine. More silence. This was a bad idea. Ethan should leave, pretend this never happened. But instead he heard himself say, "What are you working on?" Adrian looked surprised, like no one had ever asked him that before. Just math, he said carefully. What kind of math? Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly, like he was trying to figure out if this was a joke, some kind of prank. Orbital mechanics, he said finally. Ethan's pulse quickened. Like, for planets. For anything that orbits. Planets, moons, binary star systems. Adrian's voice was still guarded. Why? I'm interested in that stuff. You are. It wasn't a question. It was disbelief. Ethan felt his face get hot. Yeah, I am. Adrian studied him. Those gray eyes swept over Ethan's Letterman jacket, the USC logo on his backpack, the bruise on his throwing arm from last night's game. You're interested in astrophysics, Adrian said slowly. You, Ethan Cross, quarterback. The way he said it made Ethan's chest tighten. People can be more than one thing, Ethan said quietly. Something flickered across Adrian's face, too fast to name. He closed his notebook, started packing up. Wait, Ethan said. I didn't mean to. It's fine. Adrian slung his backpack over his shoulder. I was done anyway. He walked toward the stairs, and Ethan watched him go. Again, always watching, never speaking, never reaching out. The pattern of his entire life. But this time something was different. This time Ethan didn't want to let him walk away. He grabbed his calculus book, shoved it in his bag, and followed Adrian down the stairs. Adrian was already pushing through the library doors when Ethan caught up to him. Adrian? Adrian stopped, turned around. They stood on the library steps. The afternoon sun was warm. October leaves scattered across the sidewalk. I'm sorry, Ethan said, for running into you, for bothering you just now, for everything. Adrian tilted his head slightly. Why are you apologizing, Mom? Because Ethan struggled for words. Because I shouldn't have assumed you didn't want to talk. That was rude. I don't want to talk, Adrian said, but there was something in his voice. Not quite as sharp as before. Okay, Ethan nodded. Okay, I'll leave you alone. He started to turn away. Betelgeuse, Adrian said suddenly. Ethan stopped. What? You asked what I'm interested in. Betelgeuse, it's a red supergiant in Orion. It's dying. Could explode any day now or 1,000 years from now. No one knows. Ethan's throat felt tight. I know. I mean, I've read about it. Most people haven't. I'm not most people. The words hung between them. Adrian's expression softened, just slightly, almost imperceptible. No, he said quietly. I guess you're not. And then he walked away. But this time Ethan didn't feel like he'd lost something. This time it felt like a beginning. Sunday morning, church. Ethan sat between his parents in the third pew from the front. Same spot they'd sat in for 18 years. His mother wore her cream-colored dress. His father wore a tie that was slightly too tight. Ethan wore a button-down shirt and khakis and a smile that never reached his eyes. Pastor Williams was talking about community, about knowing your neighbors, about being a light in the darkness. Ethan wasn't listening. He was thinking about Betelgeuse, about how it's the brightest star in Orion, how it's dying, how when it finally explodes it will be visible during the day. A supernova so bright it will outshine the moon, and no one will see it coming. After the service, there was coffee and cookies in the fellowship hall. His mother talked to Mrs. Henderson about the fall festival. His father talked to Mayor Mitchell about the upcoming game against Riverdale. Sarah appeared at Ethan's elbow. She looked perfect. Hair curled, dress pressed, smile practiced. Hey, stranger, she said, looping her arm through his. Hey. Feeling better. Your headache. Yeah, much better. Another lie. Sarah leaned in closer, lowered her voice. My parents want us to come to dinner tonight. Dad wants to talk to you about the USC scholarship. He's really proud. Of course he was. Mayor Mitchell loved telling everyone that his daughter was dating a future football star. Tonight, Ethan asked. Is that okay? I know it's last minute, but it's fine. Sarah smiled, kissed his cheek. You're the best. She walked away to talk to the cheerleading squad. Ethan stood alone with his coffee, watching, always watching, never participating. Ethan. He turned. Mrs. Phillips, his physics teacher. Mrs. Phillips, hi. How are you? She smiled warmly. Great game Friday night. Thanks. I wanted to ask you something. She glanced around, lowered her voice. I'm starting an astronomy club. Meeting once a week. I know you're busy with football, but I thought maybe you'd be interested. Ethan's heart skipped. An astronomy club. Just a small group. We'd use the telescope on the school roof, study celestial mechanics, maybe take a field trip to the observatory in Eugene. Everything in Ethan wanted to say yes. Everything in Ethan knew he couldn't. I'd love to, he said slowly, but with football and school and... I understand. Mrs. Phillips' smile didn't fade. But if you change your... The first meeting is Thursday after school. Room 304. She walked away. Ethan stared at his coffee. Room 304, Thursday. He wouldn't go. He couldn't go. But God, he wanted to. Monday morning. School. Ethan parked his truck in his usual spot, the one with his name painted on it, reserved for the quarterback, a privilege, an expectation. He grabbed his backpack and headed inside. The hallways were crowded, lockers slamming, people talking. Someone's speaker playing bad hip-hop. Ethan, my man. Tyler high-fived him. You coming to practice after school? Yeah. Coach said he's got a new play for you, some crazy trick play. Great. Another play to memorize, another responsibility. Ethan kept walking. He saw Sarah by her locker surrounded by friends. She waved. He waved back. He saw his teammates gathered by the gym doors laughing about something. He saw Mrs. Phillips walking toward the science wing carrying a box of telescope equipment. And then he saw Adrian at the far end of the hallway, alone, headphones on, walking with his head down. Someone bumped into him, didn't apologize. Adrian didn't react, just kept walking. Invisible. Ethan's hands tightened on his backpack straps. Before he could think about it, he changed direction. Walked toward Adrian. Adrian. Adrian stopped. Looked up. Surprise flickered across his face. Hey, Ethan said. Hey. People were staring now. Ethan could feel it. Whispers starting. Why is Ethan talking to Adrian Clarke? Who's that kid? Is that the weird one who never talks? Ethan ignored them. Are you going to Mrs. Phillips' astronomy club? He asked. Adrian blinked. How do you know about that? She invited me. Oh. Adrian looked away. Yeah, I'm going. Cool. Silence. Adrian shifted his backpack. Are you? Ethan opened his mouth. The truth sat on his tongue. Heavy. I don't know, he said. Adrian nodded, like he'd expected that answer, like he knew Ethan couldn't possibly care about something Adrian cared about. See you around, Adrian said. He started to walk away, and Ethan made a decision. A stupid, reckless, dangerous decision. Wait, he called. Adrian turned back. Ethan pulled out a pen, grabbed Adrian's hand before he could pull away. Adrian's skin was cold. Ethan wrote quickly, on Adrian's palm, Beetlejuice will explode someday, but it's still the most beautiful thing in Orion. Then he let go. Adrian stared at his hand, at the words written in blue ink. He looked up at Ethan, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. See you Thursday, Ethan said, and he walked away before Adrian could respond. Before he could take it back. Before he could pretend to be someone he wasn't. That night, Ethan lay in bed and stared at his glow-in-the-dark stars. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He opened it. Why Orion? Ethan's heart hammered. Adrian. It was Adrian. He didn't know how Adrian got his number. Didn't care. He typed back, because it's the first constellation I learned. Because it's visible from everywhere. Because it feels like home. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. It's my favorite too. Ethan smiled, actually smiled. The first real smile in months. Can I ask you something, Ethan typed. Okay, what's your novel about long pause? How do you know about that? I saw it in your journal the night I hit your bike. I didn't mean to read it, but I saw the first line. No response for 2 full minutes. Then it's about a person who feels invisible and another person who's too visible and what happens when they collide. Ethan read it 3 times. Can I read it? No. Why not? Because it's not finished and because it's bad. I doubt that. Another pause. Why do you care? Ethan stared at that question. Why did he care? Because Adrian Clarke saw things no one else saw. Because he wrote about stars and orbits and collisions. Because he was the only person in this entire town who understood what it felt like to be trapped. Because I think we're more alike than you know, Ethan typed. The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. Ethan waited. 5 minutes, 10, 20, nothing. He put his phone down, closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he fell asleep thinking about something other than football. He fell asleep thinking about gravity, about orbits, about collisions that change everything. Tuesday afternoon, Ethan sat in the back of his English class, not listening to Mrs. Rivera talk about The Great Gatsby. He was thinking about Thursday, about the astronomy club, about whether Adrian would be surprised to see him there. His phone buzzed. Under the desk, he checked it. Sarah, can you drive me home after practice? My car's in the shop. Ethan, sure. He put the phone away, looked up, and saw Adrian. He was walking past the classroom. Ethan could see him through the window in the door, headphones on, book in hand, walking alone, always alone. Mrs. Rivera was still talking, Something about symbolism, green lights, unreachable dreams. Ethan barely heard her because he was watching Adrian disappear down the hallway. And he was thinking about Thursday, about room 304, about a choice he hadn't made yet, but already knew he would. Wednesday night, dinner with Sarah's family. The Mitchells lived in the biggest house in Millbrook. White columns, circular driveway, a chandelier in the foyer that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. Mayor Mitchell was exactly what you'd expect. Big smile, firm handshake, expensive watch. Ethan, good to see you, son. He clapped Ethan on the back. How's the shoulder ready for Riverdale? Yes, sir. That's what I like to hear. USC's lucky to have you. They sat down to dinner. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, everything perfect. Sarah's mother asked about his college plans, his major, his goals. Ethan gave the answers he was supposed to give. Business, maybe? Or sports management. Something practical. Not astrophysics. Never astrophysics. Sarah tells us you two are thinking about going to prom together, Mrs. Mitchell said. That's so sweet. Prom. Ethan had forgotten about prom. Yeah, he said, definitely. Sarah smiled, reached over and squeezed his hand. Her hand was warm, soft, familiar, but it felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. Excuse me, Ethan said, standing up. Bathroom. Down the hall, second door on the right, Mayor Mitchell said. Ethan walked down the hallway, but he didn't go to the bathroom. He went to the front door, stepped outside, stood on the porch and breathed. The night air was cold, clean. He could see stars, not many. Light pollution from the street lamps, but enough. There, Orion, rising in the east, Betelgeuse glowing red on Orion's shoulder. Dying, Ethan thought, but still beautiful. The front door opened behind him. You okay, Sarah? She stood in the doorway, arms crossed against the cold. Yeah, Ethan said, just needed air. Sarah walked over, stood beside him, followed his gaze up to the sky. What are you looking at? Nothing, just stars. You've been weird lately, Sarah said quietly. Distant. Ethan didn't answer. Is it the pressure about USC? Maybe. You can talk to me, you know, about anything. Could he tell her that he didn't want to go to USC, that he didn't want to play football, that every time someone congratulated him on his scholarship, it felt like a noose tightening around his neck? Could he tell her that he'd spent the last 3 nights texting a boy he barely knew about binary stars and gravitational pulls? No, he couldn't tell her any of that. I'm fine, Ethan said. Just tired. Sarah nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Come on, she said. Dessert's probably ready. They went back inside. Ethan ate apple pie and smiled and answered questions and played the part he'd been playing for years. But his mind was somewhere else. Room 304. Tomorrow. Thursday after school. Ethan stood outside room 304 for 5 full minutes. He could hear voices inside. Mrs. Phillips, a few students. Laughter. His hand was on the doorknob. All he had to do was turn it. But if he walked through that door, everything would change. People would know. His teammates, his father, Sarah. They would know that Ethan Cross cared about something other than football. They would know he was different. The door opened. Ethan stumbled back. Mrs. Phillips stood there smiling. Ethan, I was hoping you'd come. Come in, come in. She pulled him inside before he could protest. The room was small, 6 desks pulled into a circle, a telescope set up by the window, star charts on the walls, 4 students, a sophomore girl Ethan didn't know, 2 junior boys from the chess club, and Adrian. Adrian looked up. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Surprise, recognition, something else. Everyone, this is Ethan, Mrs. Phillips said. Ethan, this is our little group. We're just getting started. Ethan sat down. The only empty chair was next to Adrian. Of course it was. He pulled out the chair, sat down, hyper-aware of how close Adrian was, their knees almost touching under the desk. Okay, Mrs. Phillips clapped her hands. Today we're talking about red supergiants. Who wants to start? Adrian raised his hand. Adrian, go ahead. Adrian's voice was quiet but steady. Red supergiants are massive stars in the late stages of their lives. They've exhausted the hydrogen in their cores and expanded to enormous sizes. Betelgeuse is probably the most famous example. Excellent. And what happens when they die? Supernova, a catastrophic explosion. They collapse and then rebound, ejecting most of their mass into space. And what's left behind? Either a neutron star or, if they're massive enough, a black hole. Mrs. Phillips smiled. Perfect. Anyone have questions? Ethan raised his hand. Everyone looked at him, even Adrian and Ethan. What's the time frame, Mibasi? Ethan asked. For Betelgeuse specifically. When might it explode? Adrian answered before Mrs. Phillips could. We don't know. It could be tomorrow. It could be 100,000 years from now. But whenever it happens, we'll be able to see it. Even during the day. For weeks, maybe months. Will it be dangerous? The sophomore girl asked. The explosion? No, it's 600 light years away. By the time the light reaches us, the actual explosion will have happened 600 years ago. So we're seeing the past, Ethan said. Adrian looked at him. We're always seeing the past. Light takes time to travel. The Betelgeuse we see tonight exploded in 1425. We just don't know it yet. Their eyes held. Something in Ethan's chest cracked open. That's beautiful, he said quietly, in a sad way. Yeah, Adrian said, just as quiet. It is. Mrs. Phillips started talking again, about telescopes, about the field trip to Eugene next month. But Ethan wasn't listening. He was looking at Adrian, and Adrian was looking back. And for the first time in his life, Ethan felt seen, really seen, not as the quarterback, not as Coach Cross's son, not as Sarah's boyfriend, as himself, just Ethan. And it was terrifying, and it was perfect. After the meeting, Ethan walked out with Adrian. They didn't say anything, just walked side by side down the empty hallway. Outside, the parking lot was nearly empty. Most people had gone home. Thanks for coming, Adrian said suddenly. Thanks for not telling me to leave. Why would I do that? Ethan shrugged. Because I don't belong in a group like that. Why not? Because I'm not. Ethan struggled for words. I'm not smart like you, like the others. Adrian stopped walking, turned to face him. You knew the orbital period of Betelgeuse when Mrs. Phillips asked. You understood the light year question without me having to explain it. You're smarter than you think you are. Or I'm just good at pretending. Maybe. Adrian tilted his head. But I don't think you're pretending. Not about this. Ethan's throat felt tight. I should go, he said. I have practice. Right, football. The way Adrian said it, like football was a foreign concept. Like he couldn't imagine choosing that over this. Yeah, Ethan said, football. He started to walk away. Ethan, he turned back. Adrian was holding something, a folded piece of paper. What's that? The first chapter of my novel. Adrian held it out. You asked if you could read it. Ethan stared at the paper. You don't have to, Adrian said quickly. I just thought you said you were interested, so Ethan took the paper. Their fingers brushed. Adrian pulled back like he'd been burned. Thank you, Ethan said. Adrian nodded, adjusted his backpack. See you next week. Yeah, next week. Adrian walked away. Ethan stood alone in the parking lot holding the folded paper like it was the most precious thing he'd ever been given. Because maybe it was. That night, Ethan lay in bed and read. Chapter 1, Collision. The problem with orbits is that they're predictable. You know where you'll be in a year, 5 years, 100 years. You know your trajectory, your speed, your fate. The problem with collisions is that they're not. They're chaos. Beautiful destructive chaos. This is a story about both. Ethan read the entire chapter without stopping. Then he read it again. It was about a boy who felt invisible, who watched the world from a distance, who loved stars because they were far away and cold and couldn't hurt him. And it was about a boy who was too visible, who everyone saw but no one knew, who wore a mask so well he'd forgotten what his real face looked like. It was about them. Adrian had written about them before they'd even met. Or maybe Adrian had been watching him too. Maybe they'd been orbiting each other for years. And the accident in the parking lot was just the collision that finally brought them together. Ethan picked up his phone. I read it, he typed. 3 dots appeared immediately. And it's incredible. Pause, you're lying. I'm not. It's raw and honest and beautiful. Keep writing it, please. Long pause. Why do you care so much? Ethan stared at that question. Because I see myself in it, he typed. Because I think you see me. The real me. And I haven't felt seen in a really long time. No response. Ethan waited. 1 minute. 5, 10. And then I see you. I've always seen you. Ethan's hands shook as he typed, can we talk in person when now? It's almost midnight. I don't care. Another pause. The observatory. The old one outside town. Meet me there in 20 minutes. I'll be there. Ethan threw on clothes, grabbed his keys, snuck out through his window. He drove through the dark streets of Millbrook, past the school, past the church, past Sarah's house with its white columns and perfect lawn, out to the edge of town where the old observatory sat on a hill. It had been closed for 10 years. Condemned. But the fence had holes and the door had been broken open by teenagers looking for a place to drink. Ethan parked, walked up the hill, and there was Adrian, sitting on the steps, telescope beside him. Hey, Ethan said. Hey. Ethan sat down next to him, close enough to feel the warmth from Adrian's body, far enough to be safe. They didn't speak for a long time, just sat and looked up. The sky was so clear, so full, millions of stars, billions. Do you ever feel small? Adrian asked quietly, looking at all that. No, Ethan said. I feel right, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Adrian looked at him. Even though we're just specks, even though none of this matters in the grand scheme of things, maybe that's why it matters, because we're small, because we're brief, because we're here now together looking up at stars that died before we were born. Adrian's breath caught. That's what the novel is about, he said. That exact feeling. I know. How? Because I feel it too. Silence. Well, so then Adrian said, I've been alone for a really long time. Me too. But you're never alone. You're surrounded by people. That's the loneliest kind of alone there is. Adrian turned to look at him fully. I don't understand you. I don't understand me either. Then why are you here? Ethan met his eyes. Because when I'm with you, I don't have to understand. I can just be. Something shifted in Adrian's expression, his walls cracking, just slightly. I don't know how to do this, Adrian whispered. Do what? Let someone in. Neither do I. They sat there, inches apart, not touching, but connected by something stronger than gravity. Can I tell you something? Ethan said. Okay. I hate football. I've hated it since freshman year, but I keep playing because my dad needs me to, because the whole town expects me to, because I don't know who I am without it. Adrian didn't look surprised. What do you want to do instead? Study stars, go to MIT, become an astrophysicist, spend my life looking up instead of looking down at a field. Why don't you? Because I'm scared. Of what? Of disappointing everyone, of being alone, of Ethan's voice cracked, of being myself. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I finished the novel last night, after you texted me. Really, Dato? The ending surprised me. It wasn't what I expected. What happened? Adrian looked back up at the skim. The invisible boy and the too visible boy. They didn't end up together. They couldn't. Their orbits were too different. Ethan's chest tightened. That's sad. Yeah, but they changed each other. The invisible boy learned it was okay to be seen, and the too visible boy learned it was okay to hide sometimes. To be small, to be real. Is that a happy ending? I don't know, maybe. Maybe some endings aren't happy or sad. They're just true. Ethan thought about that. About orbits that don't last. About collisions that change everything. About gravity pulling you towards something you're meant to orbit, even if only for a little while. Can I read the rest? He asked. The whole novel. Adrian hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, you can read it. Thank you. They sat in silence for a while longer, and then without thinking, Ethan reached over and took Adrian's hand. Adrian froze. Is this okay? Ethan whispered. Adrian looked at their hands, intertwined, real. Yeah, he breathed. It's okay. They didn't move. They just sat there holding hands under a sky full of dying stars. Two boys who'd spent their whole lives feeling wrong, finally feeling right. Friday morning came too soon. Ethan woke up to sunlight streaming through his window and his phone buzzing with messages. Sarah, good morning coffee before school. Tyler, yo, practice it at 3. Coach says it's going to be brutal. His father from downstairs, Ethan breakfast. Ethan stared at the ceiling. His glow-in-the-dark stars looked pale and insignificant in the daylight. Last night felt like a dream. The observatory, Adrian's hand in his, the weight of words they'd shared, but now it was morning. Reality. And Ethan had to be Ethan Cross again. He dragged himself out of bed. School was the same as always, loud, crowded, full of people who knew him without knowing him at all. Ethan walked through the hallways and saw Adrian at his locker. Their eyes met for half a second. Adrian looked away quickly, grabbed his books, disappeared into the crowd. Like last night hadn't happened, like they were still strangers. Ethan's chest tightened, but what had he expected? That everything would change overnight, that they could suddenly be, what? Friends, something more. In Millbrook, Oregon, population 4,000, where everyone knew everyone, where Ethan Cross was the quarterback and Adrian Clarke was nobody. Hey, babe? Sarah appeared beside him. Kissed his cheek. Her perfume was overwhelming this morning. Hey, Ethan managed. You okay? You look tired. Just didn't sleep well. Sarah squeezed his hand. Well, wake up. We have the pep rally at lunch. You're supposed to give a speech, remember? Ethan had forgotten. Of course there was a pep rally. There was always a pep rally. Right, he said. Speech. It'll be great. You're great. She smiled. Perfect. Practiced. See you at lunch. Yeah, lunch. She walked away with her friends. Ethan watched her go and felt nothing. The pep rally was exactly what Ethan expected. The entire school crammed into the gym, the cheerleaders performing, the band playing, Coach Cross giving an inspiring speech about dedication and teamwork. And then it was Ethan's turn. He stood at the microphone, looked out at hundreds of faces, all watching, all waiting, expecting him to say something meaningful, something inspiring. Hi, everyone, his voice echoed. Thanks for coming out to support the team. We've got a big game against Riverdale next week, and we're going to give it everything we've got. Applause, cheers. Ethan scanned the crowd, looking for one face there. Back corner, top bleacher, Adrian, headphones on, reading a book, not even pretending to pay attention. Something in Ethan's chest loosened. Football is about more than winning, Ethan heard himself say. It's about finding your place, finding people who see you, really see you. The gym went quiet. Coach Cross frowned. Sarah looked confused. It's about being brave enough to be yourself, Ethan continued, even when it's scary, even when you don't fit the mold everyone expects. He was looking directly at Adrian now, and Adrian had looked up from his book. Their eyes locked. So yeah, go Panthers, but also be brave, be yourself, that's all. Awkward silence, then scattered applause. Ethan stepped away from the microphone. His hands were shaking. Coach Cross grabbed his arm as he walked past. What was that, just trying something different? Well, don't. Stick to the script next time. Ethan pulled away, walked out of the gym. He needed air, space, silence. He pushed through the doors and stood in the empty hallway. That was interesting. Ethan spun around. Adrian, standing there, no headphones this time. You were paying attention, Ethan said. Hard not to when someone's staring at you. I wasn't. You were. Silence. Then Adrian said quietly, was that about me? The speech. Ethan's heart hammered. Maybe. Adrian stepped closer. You can't do that. People will notice. Let them. Ethan, I'm tired of hiding. You're not hiding. You're surviving. There's a difference. Adrian was close now, close enough that Ethan could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes. What if I don't want to just survive anymore? Ethan whispered. Adrian's breath caught. Then you're braver than I am. I doubt that. The hallway was empty. Everyone was still in the gym. They were alone. Ethan reached out, touched Adrian's hand, just his fingertips against Adrian's palm. Adrian didn't pull away. Meet me tonight, Ethan said. The beach, 5 a.m., before sunrise. That's insane. I know. Adrian looked at their hands, at the point where they connected. Okay, he breathed. 5 a.m. Then he pulled away and disappeared around the corner, leaving Ethan standing alone in the hallway, heart racing, terrified, alive. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed watching the minutes tick by. Midnight, 1 a.m., 2. At 4:30, he got up, threw on clothes, grabbed his keys as quietly as possible. His father was snoring. His mother's light was off. Ethan slipped out through the front door. The town was dead silent, no cars, no lights except street lamps. He drove to the beach 20 minutes away, the small rocky one that tourists never went to. Too cold, too windy, too gray. Perfect. Adrian was already there. He sat on a piece of driftwood telescope beside him, wearing a thick jacket and a beanie that made him look younger. Ethan parked and walked over. The sand was hard and cold under his feet. "You came?" Adrian said. "Of course I came." Ethan sat beside him. Their shoulders touched. The ocean stretched out before them, dark, endless. The sound of waves was hypnotic. "Why here?" Adrian asked. "Because no one else will be here. Because we can be whoever we want." Adrian was quiet for a moment. "And who do you want to be?" "I don't know yet, but I want to find out." They sat in silence, waiting for sunrise. "I brought the rest of the novel," Adrian said eventually. He pulled out a thick stack of papers from his backpack. "If you still want to read it." Ethan took it carefully. "How does it end, really? You'll have to read it to find out." "Give me a hint." Adrian smiled, barely. "It ends with a choice and a goodbye. Sad goodbye or hopeful goodbye." "Both." Ethan looked at the pages in his hands. "Can I ask you something?" "Okay." "When did you start writing it?" Adrian stared out at the ocean. "After my mom died, I needed somewhere to put all the words I couldn't say out loud." "What words?" "That I was angry, that I was lost, that I felt like I was disappearing and no one even noticed." Ethan's throat felt tight. "I would have noticed." "No, you wouldn't have. You were busy being perfect." "I was busy pretending to be perfect." "There's a difference." Adrian turned to look at him. "When did you realize that you were pretending?" Ethan thought about it. "Sophomore year. Coach put me in as starting quarterback. Everyone was so proud. My dad cried, and I just felt hollow, like I'd put on a costume and couldn't take it off." "Why didn't you quit?" "Because quitting would mean admitting I'd been lying to everyone, to myself." "So you kept playing." "I kept playing." The sky was starting to lighten, just barely, navy blue turning to gray. "Can I tell you something?" Adrian said quietly. "Always. I wrote the protagonist of my novel before I knew you. But when I met you, when I really met you that night at the library, I realized I'd been writing about you the whole time." Ethan's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I saw you, long before you saw me. I saw how you looked at the sky during practice. How you smiled for everyone, but it never reached your eyes. How you were drowning in expectations and no one threw you a rope. You saw all that. I see everything. That's the problem with being invisible. You get really good at watching." Ethan didn't know what to say, so instead he reached over and took Adrian's hand again. This time Adrian's fingers curled around his immediately, holding tight. "I'm scared," Ethan whispered. "Me too." "Of what?" "Of this, of wanting something I can't have." Of Adrian's voice broke. "Of letting you in and then losing you." "You won't lose me." "You don't know that?" "No, but I want to try anyway." The sun was starting to rise, a thin line of gold on the horizon. They sat there, hands intertwined, watching light break over the ocean. And for those few perfect minutes, nothing else mattered. Not football, not expectations, not the town or the future or anything else. Just this, just them. The next week passed in a blur of secret moments. They didn't talk at school, not where people could, but they texted, late at night, early in the morning, equations and book recommendations and random observations. Adrian, the moon is in its waxing gibbous phase, 87% illuminated. Ethan, I'm looking at it right now. It's beautiful. Adrian, you're supposed to be sleeping. Ethan, can't, too busy thinking. Adrian, about what Ethan you. They met at the astronomy club every Thursday, sat next to each other, shoulders touching. But Phillips taught them about light years and cosmic background radiation and the heat death of the universe. And Ethan couldn't focus on any of it because Adrian was right there so close, and Ethan wanted to reach over and take his hand in front of everyone. But he didn't, because at school they were still strangers. At school, Ethan was still the quarterback dating Sarah Mitchell. At school, Adrian was still invisible. 2 weeks after the pep rally, Marcus Clarke finally broke through. He'd been trying, making Adrian's favorite meals, asking about school, leaving notes. But Adrian had walls built so high even Marcus couldn't climb them. Until Thursday night. Marcus knocked on Adrian's door. "Can I come in?" "I'm busy." Marcus opened the door anyway. Adrian was at his desk, laptop open, writing. "What are you working on?" Marcus asked. "Nothing." Marcus walked over, saw the document titled Collision. Chapter 15. "Is that a novel?" Adrian closed the laptop quickly. "It's private." Marcus sat on the edge of the bed, tired, older than he'd looked a year ago. "Your mother used to write," he said quietly. Adrian froze. They never talked about Mom, not since the funeral. It was an unspoken rule. "Poetry mostly," Marcus continued. "She'd stay up late writing by hand in these little journals. She had dozens of them." "I know, I have them." Marcus looked surprised. "You do?" "She gave them to me before she died. She said I should have them." Silence. "I miss her," Marcus said, his voice cracked. "Every single day, and I'm sorry." "For what?" "For moving on too fast, for marrying Diane when you weren't ready, for not seeing how much you were hurting." Adrian stared at his desk. "You were hurting too." "That's not an excuse. You're my son. I should have been there." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. He blinked them away. "I don't know how to forgive you." "I know, and that's okay. Take your time. But I'm here now. I'm not going anywhere." They sat in silence. Then Adrian said quietly, "I finished it. The novel." "Can I read it?" Adrian hesitated. Then he opened his laptop, turned it toward Marcus. "It's about Mom. Kind of. It's about loss and finding yourself, and..." He took a shaky breath. "It's about being seen." Marcus started reading. Adrian watched him, nervous, vulnerable. And for the first time in 2 years, the wall between them cracked. Just a little, but it was a start. Saturday afternoon. Ethan sat in his truck in an empty parking lot reading. Adrian had given him the full manuscript yesterday, all 300 pages. Ethan hadn't stopped reading since. The story was incredible, raw and honest and heartbreaking. It was about a boy named Silas who felt invisible after his mother died, who retreated into himself, who watched the world from a distance. And it was about a boy named Cameron, star athlete, perfect son, trapped in a life he didn't choose. They met by accident. Cameron hit Silas's bike in a parking lot, and everything changed. Ethan read the scene where Cameron first saw Silas's journal, the equations about gravity and orbits. He read the scene where they met at an abandoned observatory. He read the scene where they held hands for the first time. Every scene was familiar. Every word was about them. Adrian had written their story before it happened. Or maybe he had seen it coming, seen Ethan drowning, seen himself disappearing, and written the collision into existence. Ethan reached the final chapter. Cameron had a choice. The scholarship, the future his father wanted, the safe path, or Silas, the unknown, the terrifying possibility of being himself. He chose safety. He broke Silas's heart and his own. But in the end, something changed. Cameron learned that safety isn't living. It's just surviving. And Silas learned that being seen even briefly, even painfully, was better than being invisible forever. They didn't end up together, but they didn't end up alone either. They ended up changed. Ethan closed the document. His hands were shaking. He called Adrian. "Hello." "I finished it." Silence. And Adrian's voice was small. "You wrote about me, about us, before we even how... I told you, I saw you, I've always seen you." Ethan's throat felt tight. The ending. Cameron choosing safety. Is that... He couldn't finish the sentence. "Is that what you're going to do?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." The line went quiet. Then Ethan said, "Can I see you right now?" "Where?" "The observatory." "I'll be there in 20 minutes." When Ethan arrived, Adrian was already sitting on the steps. The sun was setting, golden light painting everything warm. Ethan sat beside him, close, their thighs touching. "Your novel is brilliant," Ethan said. "You don't have to." "I'm not saying it to be nice. I'm saying it because it's true. It's the most honest thing I've ever read." Adrian looked at him. "You sound surprised." "I'm not surprised you're talented. I'm surprised you let me in. You let me see the real you." "You did the same." Ethan shook his head. "Not really. Everyone at school still thinks I'm someone I'm not. So change it. It's not that simple." "Isn't it?" Ethan wanted to explain. About his father, about USC, about Sarah and the town and the weight of expectations. But before he could, Adrian said quietly, "I'm falling for you." The world stopped. "What?" "I'm falling for you, and I know I shouldn't. I know this is temporary. I know you're going to choose the safe path because that's what Cameron does in my novel. Because that's what people like you do. People like me. People who have something to lose." Ethan's chest hurt. "You think I'm going to hurt you? I know you are. But I'm falling for you anyway." Ethan turned to face him fully. "I'm falling for you too." Adrian's breath caught. "I'm terrified," Ethan continued. "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to be this person. But when I'm with you, I want to try. I want to be brave." Ethan leaned in. Their faces were inches apart. "Can I kiss you?" Ethan whispered. Adrian's eyes were wide, scared, wanting. "Yes." Ethan closed the distance. Their lips met, soft, tentative, perfect. Adrian made a small sound in the back of his throat. His hand came up to cup Ethan's face. The kiss deepened. And for those few perfect seconds, nothing else existed. Just them. Just this. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Adrian's eyes were glassy. "That was, yeah." They sat, their foreheads touching. "What do we do now?" Adrian whispered. "I don't know. I'm scared." "Me too." "But you're not going to run," Ethan pulled back. Looked Adrian in the eyes. "No, I'm not going to run." Adrian smiled, small, fragile, real. "Okay," he breathed. "Okay." They kissed again, and again, and when they finally drove home separately, Ethan felt lighter than he had in years. Like maybe, just maybe, he could do this. Like maybe being brave was worth it. But the universe has a way of testing resolve. Monday morning, Jake Martinez was going through photos on his phone during lunch. He'd been taking pictures all 1 week for the yearbook, football practice, the pep rally, random candid shots. He scrolled past dozens of images and stopped. There, a photo from Thursday night. He'd been driving past the old observatory and saw 2 figures on the steps. Jake had pulled over, grabbed his camera, taken a shot because the lighting was perfect. Golden hour, silhouettes, artistic. He zoomed in now, seeing it clearly for the first time. 2 boys, sitting close, heads bent together, one wearing a Letterman jacket. Jake's stomach dropped and, "Hey, Tyler, look at this." Tyler leaned over, looked at the screen. His eyes went wide. "Is that?" "Yeah," with Adrian Clarke. "Yeah. What are they doing?" Jake zoomed in more. The image was slightly blurry but clear enough. "Dude," Tyler breathed. "Are they?" "I don't know." They stared at the photo. "What are you going to do with it?" Tyler asked. Jake looked at his teammate, at the photo, at the choice in front of him. "Nothing," he said. "I'm going to do nothing." "But no, this is none of our business." Tyler frowned. "Dude, if Ethan is..." "I said no." Jake's voice was firm. "We're not doing this. We're not outing someone. That's not who we are." Tyler backed off. "Okay. Yeah, you're right." Jake started to delete the photo, but his thumb hesitated over the button. The thing about secrets is that they never stay secret for long. Not in a town of 4,000 people. Not when everyone is always watching. The photo reached Sarah by accident. Jake had meant to keep it private, but he'd posted it to the team's group chat with the caption, "Cool shot from the Hervery composition practice." He'd cropped it, zoomed out, made the figures less recognizable. But Sarah was on that group chat because she was the cheerleading captain and they coordinated events. And Sarah had eyes trained to notice details. She zoomed in, saw the Letterman jacket, saw the familiar slump of shoulders, saw Ethan, and saw the boy next to him. She spent an hour staring at the photo, zooming, unzooming, telling herself she was wrong. But she wasn't wrong. That was Ethan with Adrian Clarke, sitting close enough that their shoulders touched, looking at each other like Sarah's hands shook. She felt sick, not with anger, not even with betrayal, with understanding, because suddenly everything made sense. The distance, the distraction, the way Ethan looked right through her lately. He wasn't unhappy with her. He was unhappy with himself. Sarah sat on her bed, stared at the photo, and cried, not because she was losing him, but because she'd never really had him to begin with. Sarah found Ethan after practice on Wednesday. He was walking to his truck, hair wet from the shower, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Ethan, wait. He turned. Hey, what's up? Sarah held out her phone, the photo on the screen. Ethan's face went white. That's not, don't. Sarah's voice was steady. Don't lie to me, not now. Ethan's mouth closed. Is it true? She asked quietly. You and Adrian Clarke. Silence, then yes, Sarah nodded, like she'd expected it. How long? A few weeks. Nothing happened until I don't need details. Sarah put her phone away. I need to know if you ever actually loved me. Ethan's chest ached. Sarah, it's okay, you can tell me the truth. I cared about you. I do care about you. But not the way I deserved. No, I'm sorry. Sarah wiped her eyes. She wasn't crying, but she looked tired, so tired. Everyone's going to find out, she said. You know that, right? This town doesn't keep secrets. I know. Your dad, the scholarship, everything you've worked for. I know. And you're still going to do it. Be with him. Ethan thought about Adrian, about gray eyes and orbital mechanics and the feeling of being truly seen. I don't know, he said honestly. Sarah laughed, bitter. At least you're honest now. I never meant to hurt you. I know, but you did anyway. She started to walk away, then stopped. Ethan. Yeah. I hope you figure it out. Whatever makes you happy, I really do. She walked away, and Ethan stood alone in the parking lot, the weight of everything crashing down on him. That night, Sarah did something she'd never done before. She sat at her vanity, looked at herself in the mirror, and took off the mask, no makeup, no perfect smile, no practiced expressions, just her. Sarah Mitchell, 17 years old, tired of pretending. She opened her journal, the one she never let anyone see, and she wrote, I don't know who I am without him. That's the scariest part. Not that he doesn't love me, but that I don't know if I ever loved me. I've spent so long being what everyone wanted. Perfect daughter, perfect girlfriend, perfect student. Who am I underneath all that? She stared at the words and made a decision. Friday morning, Sarah found Ethan at his locker. I'm not going to tell anyone, she said without preamble. Ethan looked surprised. What? About you and Adrian. I'm not going to tell anyone. Sarah, but you need to make a choice because this, whatever you're doing, it's not fair to him, or to you, or even to me. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're trying to have it both ways, and that's just hurting everyone. Ethan didn't have an answer. Sarah's expression softened. I've been thinking about us, about everything, and I realized something. What? I don't want you to choose me. I want you to choose yourself, the real you, even if that means losing you. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. Why are you being so nice about this? Because you deserve to be happy, and so do I. And we can't make each other happy if we're both pretending to be someone we're not. She reached out, touched his hand once. Figure out who you are, Ethan, and then be that person, unapologetically. She walked away, and Ethan leaned against his locker, overwhelmed by her kindness, by her clarity, by the impossible choice in front of him, the breaking point. That weekend, everything came to a head. Coach Cross called a family meeting. Ethan sat at the dining table with his parents. His mother looked worried. His father looked excited. USC called, Coach said. They want you at summer training camp early, May instead of June. That's wonderful, Ethan's mother beamed. It means you're their guy, his father continued. This is everything we've worked for. Ethan stared at the table. Son, his father frowned. You don't look happy. I am, it's just what? The words sat on his tongue. Heavy, necessary. I don't want it to go to USC. I don't want to play football. I want to study stars and be myself and stop living your dream. But when he looked up at his father's face, full of pride and hope and his own broken dreams, Ethan couldn't say it. Nothing, he whispered. It's great, thank you. His father clapped him on the back. That's my boy. But Ethan didn't feel like anyone's boy. He felt like a ghost. Adrian knew something was wrong the moment Ethan texted him. Can you meet me at the observatory tonight? Of course. What's wrong? I'll explain when I see you. Adrian arrived first, sat on the steps, waited. When Ethan pulled up, Adrian knew immediately. The way Ethan walked. Shoulders hunched, eyes down. This wasn't going to be good. Hey, Adrian said quietly. Hey. Ethan sat beside him, but didn't reach for his hand, didn't meet his eyes. USC wants me early, Ethan said, for summer training. That's good, right? Yeah, it's what I'm supposed to want. Silence. Ethan, what's going on? Ethan finally looked at him, and his eyes were full of tears. I can't do this, he whispered. Adrian's heart stopped. Can't do what? This, us, I can't. Ethan's voice broke. Sarah knows the photo. It's only a matter of time before everyone else finds out. So let them find out. You don't understand. My dad, the scholarship, everything I've worked for. You mean everything your dad worked for? Ethan flinched. That's not fair, he said. Isn't it? You're miserable, Ethan, and you're choosing to stay miserable because you're scared. Of course I'm scared. I have everything to lose. And what about me? Adrian's voice cracked. What do I have? Ethan didn't answer. Adrian stood up. You're just like Cameron in my novel. You're going to choose safety over happiness. Adrian, I knew this would happen. I wrote it, but I let myself hope anyway. I let myself believe you might be different. I want to be different. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You just don't want to pay the by tears streamed down Ethan's face now. Don't make me choose. I'm not making you do anything. You're choosing. You've already chosen. The truth of it hung between them. Ethan had already decided, even before he came here. I'm sorry, Ethan whispered. Adrian's laugh was bitter. Broken. You're sorry. I am. I never meant to hurt you. But you did anyway. Ethan reached for him. Adrian stepped back. Don't. Just don't. Adrian, please. Go back to your perfect life, Ethan. Your scholarship, your father's dreams, your safe, suffocating future. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You're just too scared to see it. Ethan stood there, tears running down his face, and Adrian looked at him, really looked at him, at the boy he'd fallen for, the boy who'd made him feel seen for the first time in years, the boy who was walking away. I hope it's worth it, Adrian said quietly. The safety, the approval. I hope it's worth everything you're giving. Adrian, Agar, please don't. Adrian's voice cracked. Just go. Ethan stood there for one more second. Then he turned and walked to his truck. Got in, drove away, leaving Adrian standing alone at the observatory again. Always alone. Adrian waited until the truck's taillights disappeared. Then he sank to the ground and finally let himself break. He'd known this would happen, had written it, had predicted every step. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. He pulled out his phone, opened his novel, scrolled to the end, and started typing a new epilogue. Some people aren't meant to be saved. They're too busy drowning in expectations to reach for the rope you throw them. Some collisions don't change anything. They just leave debris. And some goodbyes aren't bittersweet. They're just bitter. The invisible boy learned that being seen even briefly, even painfully, is still better than being invisible forever. But it comes at a cost, and sometimes the cost is everything. Adrian saved about a document, closed his laptop, and sat alone under the stars, letting the silence swallow him whole. The week after the breakup, Ethan stopped sleeping. He went through the motions. Woke up, went to school, went to practice, but he wasn't there, not really. He was a shell moving through space, empty, hollow. Coach Cross noticed first. Cross, what the hell was that? Tuesday practice. Ethan had fumbled a simple snap. The ball had bounced off his hands like he'd never held one before. Sorry, coach. Sorry doesn't win games, run it again. They ran it again. Ethan fumbled again. Tyler caught the ball, looked at Ethan with concern. Dude, you okay? I'm fine. He wasn't fine. Wednesday's practice was worse. Ethan threw an interception on a basic play, missed a wide-open receiver, got sacked because he forgot to check his blind side. Take 5, Coach Cross barked. He pulled Ethan aside. What's going on with you, Tai? Nothing. This isn't nothing. You're playing like a freshman. I'm just tired. Then sleep more. We have Riverdale on Friday. I need you sharp. But Ethan couldn't be sharp, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw Adrian, sitting alone at the observatory, looking at him with those gray eyes full of hurt. I hope it's worth it. Thursday, astronomy club. Ethan didn't go. He sat in his truck in the parking lot watching the minutes tick by on his phone. 3:15, the meeting would be starting. 3:20, Mrs. Phillips would be setting up the telescope. 3:25. Adrian would be sitting in his usual seat, the one next to where Ethan used to sit. 3:30, Ethan started his truck and drove home. He couldn't face him, couldn't look at what he'd broken. Inside room 304, Adrian sat alone at the back. Mrs. Phillips was talking about nebulae, birth of stars, death of stars, the cycle of creation and destruction. Adrian wasn't listening. He was staring at the empty chair beside him, the one Ethan used to occupy. Adrian, Mrs. Phillips' voice broke through. Did you have something to add? Adrian looked up. Everyone was staring at him. No, he said quietly. Sorry. Mrs. Phillips' expression softened. Why don't you tell everyone about MIT? Adrian froze. What about MIT? One of the sophomore students asked. Adrian's hands clenched in his lap. It's nothing. It's not nothing, Mrs. Phillips said gently. Adrian received his acceptance letter yesterday. Full scholarship, one of the most competitive programs in the country. The small group erupted in congratulations. But Adrian just sat there, feeling empty. He'd gotten into MIT, his dream school, full ride, everything he'd worked for, and he'd never felt more alone. Friday night, the game against Riverdale. The stadium was packed, every seat filled. This was the rivalry game, the one that mattered. Ethan stood on the sideline, helmet in hand, staring at the field. His father approached. You ready, Yeah. Good. Remember, watch their linebacker. He's fast. And keep your eyes downfield. Don't lock onto your first option. Got it. This is important, son. Scouts might be watching. The weight pressed down. Heavier, heavier. The referee blew the whistle. Ethan ran onto the field. The first quarter was a disaster. Ethan overthrew 3 passes, took 2 unnecessary sacks, couldn't find his rhythm. By halftime, they were down 14-3. In the locker room, Coach Cross was furious. What is wrong with you tonight? You're playing scared. Ethan stared at the floor. Look at me when I'm talking to you. Ethan looked up, and his father's face was red, veins popping, eyes wild with disappointment. I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but you need to snap out of it. Right now. You understand me? Yes, sir. This is everything we've worked for. Don't throw it away because you're having some kind of crisis. Crisis, the word echoed. That's what this was, a crisis. Choosing yourself over expectations. Wanting something different than what you're supposed to want. Loving someone you're not supposed to love. Crisis. Get your head in the game, his father said, or I'm pulling you. The second half was worse. Third quarter. Ethan dropped back to pass, saw Tyler open. Threw, but the ball sailed wide, right into the hands of a Riverdale defender. Interception. They ran it back for a touchdown. The Millbrook crowd went silent. Ethan stood on the field, alone, surrounded by teammates but completely isolated. Fourth quarter, down by 21. 4 minutes left. Coach sent Ethan back in. One last chance. Ethan called the play, took the snap, dropped back, and froze. He looked at the receivers, at the defense, at the crowd, and all he could think was, I don't want to be here. Time seemed to slow. Someone was shouting his name, Tyler, Jake, his father. But Ethan couldn't move. He stood there, ball in hand, while a defender rushed toward him. The hit came from his blind side. Brutal, hard, clean. Ethan went down and didn't get back up. The trainer rushed onto the field. Can you hear me, Ethan? Ethan nodded. Does anything hurt? Everything hurt, but not physically. I'm fine, he managed. We need to get you checked out. I said I'm fine. He stood up, waved off help, walked to the sideline. His father met him there. What the hell was that? I don't know. Wish else you just stood there. You didn't even try. I know. Do you want to lose, is that it? Ethan looked at his father, really looked at him, at the desperation, the fear, the dreams dying in his eyes, and something in Ethan snapped. Maybe, he said quietly. What? Maybe I do want to lose. Maybe I'm tired of winning at something I hate. His father's face went white. What are you talking about? A football, Dad? I hate football. I've hated it for years. The words hung in the air. Around them, the game continued. But in their bubble, everything had stopped. You don't mean that, his father said. I do. I'm sorry, but I do. After everything we've sacrificed. You sacrificed, not me. I never asked for this. His father's hands clenched. Get back on that field. No, that's not a request. I'm done. Ethan pulled off his helmet, set it on the bench, and walked away. Off the field, through the tunnel, out of the stadium. Behind him, he heard shouting. His father, the team, the crowd. But Ethan kept walking. To the parking lot, to his truck. He got in, started the engine, and drove. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he couldn't go back. Adrian was sitting on the front porch when his phone buzzed. Marcus was inside trying to have a normal dinner with Diane. Adrian had excused himself. Too much family bonding. He looked at his phone. Unknown number. He walked off the field. Middle of the game. I think he's having a breakdown. Thought you should know. Sarah Adrian's heart stopped. He called Sarah immediately. Where is he? I don't know. He just left. Got in his truck and drove away. Did anyone go after him? His dad tried, but Ethan, he looked destroyed, Adrian. Adrian was already standing. I'll find him. Adrian. Yeah, I'm glad he has you. The line went dead. Adrian ran inside. Dad, I need your car. Marcus appeared from the kitchen. What's wrong? I need to find someone. It's an emergency. Marcus didn't ask questions, just tossed him the keys. Be safe. Adrian was already out the door. He tried the obvious places first. The school, empty. The beach, dark and deserted. The library, closed. Adrian drove through town's panic building in his chest. Where would Ethan go? Somewhere he felt safe. Somewhere quiet. And then Adrian knew. The observatory. He drove faster, probably too fast. He didn't care. When he pulled up, Ethan's truck was there. Adrian parked, got out, and saw Ethan sitting on the steps, still in his football uniform. Dirty, grass-stained, staring at nothing. Ethan! Ethan looked up. His eyes were red, face streaked with tears. You shouldn't be here, he said. Neither should you, but here we are. Adrian sat beside him, not touching, just close. I walked off, Ethan said. His voice was hollow. Middle of the game. We were losing and I couldn't do it anymore. Okay? My dad is going to kill me. Maybe. USC is going to rescind the scholarship. Probably. Everyone's going to hate me. Some of them, Ethan laughed, a broken sound. You're not very good at pep talks. I'm not here to give you a pep talk. I'm here because Sarah texted me and said you were having a breakdown. I am. I know. They sat in silence. Then Ethan said, you were right about everything. I chose safety over happiness. I chose other people's dreams over my own. And I lost the only real thing I've had in years. Ethan, I'm sorry for hurting you, for being a coward, his voice broke, for not being brave enough. Adrian's chest ached. I don't forgive you, he said quietly. Ethan nodded, like he'd expected that. But I understand, and maybe that's enough for now. Ethan looked at him. Why are you here? Because even though you broke my heart, I still... Adrian stopped, took a breath. I still care about you, and I didn't want you to be alone. I don't deserve... Stop, this isn't about what you deserve. It's about what I'm choosing to give. Ethan's eyes filled with fresh tears. I don't know what to do, he whispered. Everything's falling apart. Good. What? Good. Let it fall apart. You've been holding together something that was never meant to last. Let it crumble, and then build something new. I don't know how, unless neither do I, but maybe we can figure it out together. Ethan stared at him. You'd do that after everything. I don't know, maybe, if you actually change, if you choose yourself this time. I want to, I'm just scared. Being scared is okay. Being paralyzed by fear isn't. Ethan nodded slowly. They sat there as the sun set, as the stars came out, as the night wrapped around them. And for the first time in a week, Ethan felt like he could breathe. Saturday morning, Ethan woke up in his bed, not remembering how he got there. His father was standing in the doorway. We need to talk. Ethan sat up. I know. They went downstairs. His mother was in the kitchen making coffee. Her eyes were red. Sit, his father said. Ethan sat. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Coach Cross said, USC called this morning. Ethan's stomach dropped. They saw what happened, or rather what didn't happen. They're concerned about your commitment. Dad, let me finish. His father's voice was strained. They said they need to reassess, that they'll be in touch, which meant the scholarship was gone, or would be soon. I'm sorry, Ethan said. Are you for letting you down? Yes. His father leaned back in his chair. He looked older suddenly, tired. When I was at USC, he said quietly, I hated it. Ethan blinked. What? Football, the NFL, all of it. I hated every second. Ethan's mother set down her coffee cup. Even she looked surprised. I was good at it, his father continued. Natural talent. But it made me miserable. The pressure, the expectations, the constant performance. I felt like I was drowning, and everyone just kept telling me to swim faster. Then why did you do it? Because my father wanted it, and I didn't know how to say no. So I played and played until my body gave out and made the choice for me. Coach Cross looked at his son, really looked at him. When I got injured, I felt relieved, and then I felt guilty for feeling relieved. I'd spent my whole life chasing a dream that wasn't mine, and when it ended, I didn't know who I was. His voice cracked. So I became a coach, and I told myself I was helping kids. But really, I was just trying to live through them. Through you. Tears streamed down his face now. I'm so sorry, son. I've been doing to you exactly what my father did to me, and I didn't even see it. Ethan couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. Last night, watching you walk off that field, his father took a shaky breath. I saw myself, the person I could have been if I'd been braver. And I realized I've been crushing you under the weight of my regrets. Dad, I don't care about USC. I don't care about football. I care about you being happy, really happy, not pretend happy. His mother reached over, took both their hands. What do you want, honey? She asked Ethan gently. Not what we want, not what the town wants. What do you want? Ethan looked at his parents, at his father's tears, at his mother's open face, and for the first time he told the truth. I want to study astrophysics. I want to go to MIT or Caltech or somewhere that will let me spend my life looking at stars. I want to teach. I want to research. I want to understand the universe. He took a breath. And I want to be with someone who makes me feel like I matter. Not as a quarterback, just as me. His parents were quiet. Then his father said, then do it. What? Do it. Apply to MIT. Study stars. Be happy. But the scholarship, we'll figure it out. We'll take out loans. I'll work more. Your mother will work more. We'll make it happen. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. This is the least I can do after... His father's voice broke again. After what I've done to you. Ethan's mother squeezed his hand. We love you, whoever you are. Whatever you choose, we love you. And Ethan broke. He cried like he hadn't cried since he was a child. His parents held him, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt like he might actually be okay. Monday morning, school. The hallways were different now. People stared at Ethan, whispered, some with pity, some with confusion, some with judgment. Tyler walked up to him at his locker. "Hey man, you okay?" "Yeah, I think so." "That was intense, Friday." "I know." Tyler shifted. "Look, some of the guys are mad, but I get it. I think you got to do what's right for you." "Thanks, Tyler." "You still coming to practice?" Ethan shook his head. "I'm done with football." Tyler nodded slowly. "Okay. Well, if you ever want to hang out, like outside of football stuff, I'm around." It was an olive branch, small but real. "I'd like that," Ethan said. Tyler bumped his shoulder and walked away. Ethan closed his locker, turned around, and saw the announcement board. A list of college acceptances, updated weekly. There at the bottom, Adrian Clarke, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, full scholarship. Ethan's heart stopped. MIT, Adrian got into MIT. While Ethan had been falling apart, Adrian had been moving forward, achieving the dream Ethan only dared to want. Ethan stood there staring at the board, feeling proud and devastated, and so happy for him. Ethan found Mrs. Phillips after school. She was in room 304 packing up telescope equipment. "Ethan, I was wondering if I'd see you again." "Can I talk to you?" "Of course, sit." Ethan sat. "Did you know about Adrian and MIT?" "I helped him with his application, so yes." "He got in." "He did. He's extraordinarily talented." Ethan nodded. "I know." Mrs. Phillips studied him. "You walked out of the game Friday. Everyone knows. Do you regret it?" "No, not really." "Good." She smiled. "I'm proud of you." Ethan looked surprised. "For quitting?" "For being honest. It takes more courage to walk away from something than to keep doing it just because people expect you to." She sat beside him. "Adrian is one of the brightest students I've ever taught," she said quietly. "But he's also one of the loneliest, until recently, until you showed up." Ethan's chest tightened. "I don't know what happened in between you two," Mrs. Phillips continued, "but I know he was happier when you were around, more present, more alive. I hurt him. Then fix it, if you can, if he'll let you." "I don't think he will. You won't know unless you try." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Can I ask you something? Anything. Is it too late to apply to MIT for next year?" Mrs. Phillips' face lit up. "No, their deadline isn't until January. You'd have to take your SATs again. Get your grades up. Write incredible essays. But no, it's not too late. Will you help me?" "I'd be honored." The next 2 weeks were a blur. Ethan threw himself into studying, SAT prep, college applications, physics, calculus, essay drafts. He stopped going to football games, stopped hanging out with the team, started spending his lunches in the library. Where Adrian was, they didn't talk. But Ethan noticed Adrian noticing him, noticed the way Adrian's eyes would flick over, then away, then back, like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. Ethan didn't push. He just studied and hoped. Late November, the state science competition. Phillips had submitted Adrian's research paper on gravitational waves and their effect on binary star systems. He'd won first place. The awards ceremony was held at a university 2 hours away. Adrian's father drove him. Mrs. Phillips went to support him. And Ethan showed up. He sat in the back of the auditorium, watched Adrian accept his award, watched him give a short speech about his research. Adrian's voice was steady, confident, passionate. This was who he was meant to be. After the ceremony, Ethan waited outside. Adrian came out with his father and Mrs. Phillips. Laughing about something, he looked happy. Ethan almost turned around, almost left without saying anything. But then Adrian saw him. Their eyes met, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. Adrian said something to his father, then walked over. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi, congratulations on the award." "Thanks, what are you doing here?" "Mrs. Phillips told me about it. I wanted to see you. See you win. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Why, bye? Because I'm proud of you, and because I wanted you to know that I'm trying. Trying what? To be brave, like you said, to choose myself. Adrian was quiet. I applied to MIT, Ethan continued, and Caltech, and a few other schools, for astrophysics. Adrian's eyes widened. You did? Yeah, I don't know if I'll get in. My grades aren't as good as yours, and I have to retake my SATs, but I'm trying. What about USC? They rescinded the scholarship. I called them and withdrew my application officially. And your dad? We're okay, we're figuring it out. Adrian looked at him, really looked at him. I'm glad, he said softly. I'm glad you're choosing yourself. I'm sorry it took so long. Yeah, me too. They stood there, awkward, uncertain. I should go, Adrian said. My dad's waiting. Okay, Adrian started to walk away. Adrian, he turned back. I'm still falling for you, Ethan said. I know I don't have the right to say that, and I'm not asking for anything. I wanted you to know. Adrian's face did something complicated. Pain and hope and fear all mixed together. I'm still falling for you too, he whispered. And I hate it. Then he walked away. And Ethan stood alone in the parking lot. But this time it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a pause. December 15th, the Regional Astronomy Conference, held at the planetarium in Eugene, 90 minutes away. High school students from across Oregon presenting research, competing for scholarships, meeting professors from universities. Adrian was presenting his gravitational wave research. Mrs. Phillips had encouraged Ethan to come, to network, to see what he was working toward. Ethan almost didn't go, but at the last minute he got in his truck and drove. The planetarium was beautiful, modern, all glass and steel and open space. Inside, students set up presentations. Professors walked around with clipboards. Everything was intimidating and exciting. Ethan registered at the front desk, got his visitor badge, and immediately felt out of place. Everyone here was smart, really smart. They talked about things Ethan barely understood, used words he'd never heard. He was about to leave when he turned, Mrs. Phillips, smiling. You came, yeah, I'm not sure I should have. Nonsense, come on, Adrian's about to present. She led him to a small auditorium. The room was packed, maybe 100 people. Adrian stood at the front, projector behind him, presentation pulled up. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his note cards. Ethan found a seat in the back row and watched. Adrian took a breath, stepped up to the podium, and began. Gravitational waves are ripples in the fabric of space-time caused by some of the universe's most violent events, colliding black holes, merging neutron stars. These waves travel at the speed of light, carrying information about their origins. His voice steadied as he spoke. What fascinates me is what happens when two massive objects orbit each other. They create a continuous gravitational wave signal, a hum in the universe. Two objects permanently changed by each other's gravity, slowly spiraling closer together. Adrian clicked to the next slide. This is a simulation of a binary star system. Two stars locked in orbit. They can't escape each other. They're bound by forces neither can control. He paused. Some people might see that as tragic, being trapped, but I see it differently. He looked up, directly at the audience, directly at Ethan. I see it as inevitable, beautiful. Two objects that were always meant to find each other even across vast distances, even against impossible odds. Ethan's breath caught. They change each other, pull each other into new orbits, create something that couldn't exist alone. Adrian's eyes were locked on Ethan now. And eventually they collide, not because they want to, but because that's what gravity does. It pulls you toward what you're meant to orbit. The room was silent. Adrian clicked to his final slide. My research suggests that binary systems aren't anomalies. They're the rule. Most stars aren't alone. Most are part of a pair orbiting, changing each other, heading toward an inevitable collision. He paused. And I think that's true for people too. The presentation ended. Applause filled the room, but Ethan barely heard it because Adrian was still looking at him and Ethan was standing up. walking down the aisle, toward the front. People were staring, murmuring. Adrian stepped down from the stage. They met in the middle of the room. "That was about us," Ethan said. Not a question. Yeah, it was. "I'm so sorry for everything, for choosing wrong, for being scared, for hurting you." "I know." "Can we?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Is there a chance for us?" Adrian looked at him, at this boy who'd walked off a football field, who'd given up his scholarship, who'd driven 90 minutes just to see him present. "I'm going to MIT in the fall," Adrian said. "I know. I don't know if you'll get in. I don't know if we'll even be in the same state." "I know. And I don't know if I can trust you again. Not yet." "I know that too." Adrian took a breath. "But I want to try, if you do." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Yes. God, yes." Adrian smiled, small, fragile, real. "Okay then." They stood there in the middle of the auditorium, people watching, and Ethan reached out, took Adrian's hand in front of everyone. No hiding, no pretending, just them. And Adrian squeezed back. After the conference, they drove to a lookout point off the highway, a small turnout with a view of the valley. No lights, perfect darkness, perfect stars. They sat on the hood of Ethan's truck, shoulders touching, breath visible in the cold air. "Are you scared?" Adrian asked. "Terrified." "Me too. But, but I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." Ethan turned to look at him. "Even if I don't get into MIT, even then, we'll figure it out. What if people judge us? Let them. I'm done being invisible." Ethan smiled. "What if we mess this up?" "Then we mess it up. But at least we tried." They were quiet for a moment. Then Adrian said, "Do you remember what you wrote on my hand that first day? Betelgeuse will explode someday, but it's still the most beautiful thing in Orion. Do you still believe that?" Ethan looked up at the skyscraper. "Found Orion, found the red supergiant on its shoulder. Yeah, a dude, beautiful things don't have to last forever. They just have to matter while they're here." Adrian leaned his head on Ethan's shoulder. "We matter," he whispered. "This matters." "Yeah, it does." They sat like that for hours, watching the stars wheel overhead. Two boys who'd spent their whole lives feeling wrong, finally feeling right. 1 year later, Boston in September was different from Oregon in September. More crowded, more buildings, more noise. But the stars were the same. Ethan stood outside his dorm at Boston University, boxes stacked around him. His roommate hadn't shown up yet. His phone buzzed. "You here yet? I just got in. You've been here since yesterday. Want to meet up?" "Yes." "Where there's a roof access on the science building." "Bring your telescope." Ethan smiled. Some things never changed. An hour later, Ethan stood on the roof of MIT's MIT Science Building. Adrian was already there, telescope set up, looking older, more confident, like college agreed with him. "Hey," Ethan said. "Hey yourself." They hugged, long, tight. When they pulled apart, Adrian said, "How's BU?" "Good. My physics professor is intense, but good." "You'll do great." "We'll see." "How's MIT?" Exactly what I hoped it would be, and completely terrifying. They set up the telescope together, worked in comfortable silence. The city lights made it harder to see stars, but not impossible. Adrian peered through the eyepiece. "There, Betelgeuse." Ethan looked. The red giant burned in the darkness, still dying, still beautiful. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked. "Giving up football, US?" "Not even once. Letting you back in." "Yeah," Adrian smiled. "Not even once." They sat on the roof, close, connected. Ethan's father had started going to therapy, was learning to let go. Their relationship was still healing, but healing. Sarah had gotten into Columbia, journalism, was writing for the school paper about the pressure young women face to be perfect, was finding her voice. Marcus and Adrian had dinner every Sunday, talked about mom, shared memories, built something new from the broken pieces. And Ethan and Adrian, they were figuring it out. Long distance, 2 miles apart, but two different universities. It wasn't easy, but it was real. They met on rooftops and beaches and coffee shops. They studied together, argued about theories, challenged each other. They were both too busy, both stressed, both overwhelmed, but they were happy, really happy, not pretend happy. I got my first research position, Adrian said, with Dr. Chen. She's working on detecting exoplanets. That's amazing. What about you? How's the intro astrophysics class? I'm terrible at it, Ethan admitted. Everyone else has been studying this stuff since they were kids. I'm playing catch up. You'll catch up. You always do. How do you know? Adrian took his hand, squeezed, because you're brave enough to try, and that's harder than being smart. Ethan looked at their intertwined fingers, at the boy who'd saved him by letting him save himself. Thank you, Ethan said quietly. For what? For seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Adrian leaned in, kissed him softly. Thank you for teaching me it's okay to be seen. They pulled apart, looked up. The universe stretched above them, infinite, eternal, full of dying stars and binary systems and gravitational waves, full of collisions that changed everything. Ethan thought about gravity, about orbits, about the forces that pull you toward what you're meant to find. And he smiled, because sometimes falling isn't failure. Sometimes it's exactly where you're supposed to be. Come on, Adrian said, standing up. I want to show you the telescope lab. It's incredible. Ethan stood, followed him toward the door, and as they walked hand in hand into whatever came next, Betelgeuse burned on, dying, but still the most beautiful thing in Orion, still lighting the way home.